What is up, everybody? Nick Legostava here, about to be reviewing and comparing G1 Optimus Prime versus Earthrise / Kingdom Optimus Prime and Netflix Optimus Prime. So this is going to be an in-depth comparison of all four figures in this video and their trailers for the Earthrise / Kingdom and the G1. And I'm going to also show you how you can use the G1 trailer on Earthrise and Kingdom Optimus, contrary to what most people say, the height difference and all that. I'm going to show you exactly how you can do that because it is possible and it works quite well in my opinion. So without further ado, let's get into the comparison review. So, G1 Prime right here. I've done custom paintwork to actually all of these figures at this point already. I did do a review for G1 Prime, but it was kind of a disaster, so I didn't upload it. But tell me in the comments below if you would still want to see that. It was before I did the custom paintwork to him, did a full review of that. Almost lost one of the hands, which, yeah, that review was a mess. But right here we have the cabs, which are actually pretty comparable in size. So that's why I wanted the G1 trailer to put on Earthrise, was because these cabs are pretty more or less the same size, and I wanted to be able to fit more deluxe cars into the trailer, because cars are supposed to go in the trailer, not like two cars out of the whole lineup can fit in the trailer. And then the back here, I mean, you could just see the levels of detail are like astronomically more. But the thing is, these vents ended up in completely different places. The vents ended up on the bottom on the G1, they ended up on the top on the Earthrise / Kingdom. It's just the same thing. And I'm also going to talk about why people misinterpreted what I meant in that review, of me being like mad in that review. But I'll talk about that once I get all of them transformed up and I'm talking about the differences and many custom paint applications that I've done to Earthrise Prime. But the trailers here, I mean, you could just see the size difference between the Earthrise / Kingdom trailer and the G1 trailer. I mean, just look at that size difference. It's insane. This is literally like half the size of that. It's crazy that the cabs are basically the same size, but the trailer is half the size. It's madness. But I did do custom paintwork on this, obviously. I painted it like a chrome silver. I think a regular toned down silver probably would have been a little bit better, but I think that this looks better. I know it's less realistic. I know this piece flips out on the bottom too, but since I was going to be moving them around and clicking them and putting them on stuff, I didn't flip that out. But I do have the 3D print upgrades on there as well on the front and back. I did this part. These top parts on there are customized from the actual 3D print itself. Painted the tail lights up, painted the little turd signal lights on even the bumper. So I definitely do like to do custom paint work on my figures. That's something that I do. I mean, I usually do it right out of the box. I'll be looking at like, what am I going to paint? What am I going to do on this? Like basically everything I get, whether it's Hot Wheels, Transformers, or Legos. I mean, I don't typically paint Legos that much, but how I can improve is something that's always on the mind when I get things. But the play value, oh, whoa, whoa, we almost lost the camera there. The play value of the G1 trailer, if you want to call it that. I mean, as adults, we don't play with our figures, we mess with our figures. But the play value of this is just pretty astronomical for, I mean, way back in the 80s. I mean, today, you didn't really get that. You didn't even get a roller with Earthrise trailer. You didn't get any of the launching mechanisms. You didn't. It was just a pretty bare bones thing for quite a large sum of money for a figure. But yeah, let's get into this. So when we pop open the back, we pop open this. This is actually the reissue here. That these kind of like hold open by themselves, so you don't need to flip those parts out on the bottom, which that's something else that the Earthrise didn't actually come with, which shows are 3D printed. Those can flip out, kind of do the same thing that this can do now. But yeah, you can push that all the way down onto that, but I skip that step and just that kind of locks into place on there like that. So, I mean, you had a hose in here and all that. You had these pieces in the back, which I have yet to print for this, but I can print those out for the Earthrise trailer. I wanted to get this video out sooner. I didn't want to have to wait for me to put blue in my printer and do all that. But you get the launching mechanism and all. This is actually reissue. I keep saying that because it's a KO. But the reissue of this is, it still has all of this launching stuff in it. This is about to launch out at me. But yeah, the pretty decent launcher in the KO of this. And this is a KO of the third version of G1 Prime. I looked into the different iterations of it, because there was a lot released from the 84 lineup. Well, actually the Diaclone lineup to the 84 lineup to the 85. When they released it, they did slight revisions. These parts right here, the little hollow bits on this part, and then the hollow bits up top here. So that and that this isn't the magnet, this is the sticker of the detail on the inside, tells you that this is the third version of it. So there's that. I also didn't put the sticker sheet on there. I saved the sticker sheet. I kind of want to do something else with the sticker sheet, but you would have more details on here and all that. But you'll see that in my G1 Prime review. If you guys want me to upload that, like I said, be sure to tell me in the comments. It was kind of a disaster. I try not to upload videos that don't turn out as good as I want them to, or try to redo them or whatever, but yeah. Oh, here it is. I thought I freaking lost that already. That's another thing about the reissue is that literally just launched out at me. Those don't want to stay in very well, at least on mine. Those are pretty hair trigger. But this can fold down into the trailer, but I usually keep that open. But actually going to talk about another caveat here of the trailers themselves, and the biggest reason why you can fit more deluxe cars on the inside here. So here we have Gigawatt. You can roll him up into there. You can push the launcher back, and you won't be able to close the door unless you flip them up on the lip. But I mean, basically all the deluxe cars, that's going to keep launching out, so I'll just worry about that later. All the deluxe cars can fit in there. And another feature, if you already have the door open, because you can get them in there and close the door, but if you already have the door open, you can kind of push them out onto the launcher and then launch the cars out with the launcher, which is really cool. That, I mean, you can basically interchange that. But right now I'm going to show you how you can actually use the G1 trailer, since I just talked about how much better it was than this trailer. You can actually use it on, I'm going to launch this other one out, because that, you see, that one didn't launch out very well. It definitely did a KO of the Hasbro version and not the Takara version. It has an insane launcher on it. But this right here, when you transform Earthrise and Kingdom Prime, they have this little divot right here in the foot area. That perfectly fits this right here. So you would instinctively, if you had both of these, I have not seen anyone on YouTube attempt this or say this, but it was a comparison that I was desperately looking for when I was looking into buying a G1 trailer, is if it could fit on there. Now that doesn't look right when you try to push it up on there like that, but that part, like I said, and this circle part right here, that can actually kind of click on there, and it holds on there well. It's not just like balanced. Like, you can move this thing around pretty good. You can move it around on carpet. You can do all of that, and you can even turn it. I mean, you can see how much I'm doing with that. And I was going to do an elaborate 3D printed thing where it does sit up a little bit, but that doesn't really, like, that looks good enough to me still. And you just kind of have this gap here, kind of like on Armada Prime. You have that gap there. I'm actually going to move that out of the way. I meant to do that right there. And I'll also compare the rollers in this to a 3D printed roller, since Optimus didn't even come with one, the modern one. But I was going to do an elaborate 3D print thing where I unscrewed all that and put different tires on there and made the levels different. Like, I was going to make basically a filler for inside there so it could sit on flush. But tell me if you're still interested in that, or if this kind of little ghetto fix here of just kind of putting it on there. I mean, that's good enough for me, because how much more further could that be pushed up on there and still have the full mobility of the trailer on there? So that works out really well for me. I think I'm gonna, when I do my stop motion series, I'm just gonna use the G1 trailer on Prime. You know, that is something that I do have planned down the line, a Transformers stop motion series. So tell me what you would like to see in that. This is about to cut me off. I'm gonna have this set up differently and talk about other things. So here we go. We're going to talk about the accessories, the rollers, and then we're going to compare all those primes. I have a KO upscaled Siege Prime. That's why he's bigger than the other ones, but it's the same figure, just upscaled. But here we go. So the guns here, this is the G1 rifle right here. Has the molded in handle that you can't use back there, and then you got to put it sideways in his hand. When I get him into robot mode, you'll see that. And then the Earthrise gun here. Definitely inspired by this, but it was weird how they did it in gray plastic and painted it for that one, but they changed that on the Netflix version. And then I have the 3D printed one in the Netflix version, which is basically a toy accurate kind of rifle, but a little bit bigger, and the handle is where it's supposed to be. So that, is that. So let's move those out of the way here. And you could also put Earthrise in G1's hand if you wanted to do that. Here's the 3D printed roller right here in the animation color. This one is in the second toy color because it was a different blue. It was originally the silver color and the gray color, how it was in the animation. But this right here, I definitely got to say I do like the 3D printed roller more. It's just more filled out than the G1 roller. I know this was to fit the little Diaclone guys in there and then some third party like spikes and whatnot. But, you know, for back then what it was, I mean, considering how much you got for the price. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. I don't know the original price of G1 Prime, but I've heard that it was $25. You know, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but whatever the retail price for that back in the day, wow. You definitely got your money's worth back in the day. That is for sure. So rollers out of the way. This was a smaller version. It's the same as this, but just a blue one for the sake of having a blue roller as well. So, now on to what people want to see and are excited to see. I also had 3D printed a bunch of stuff of this. So that's not what you're excited to see, but we're getting into that. But yeah, just kind of made him into like a Wall-E looking guy. This came with Earthrise Prime, but all those upgrades on there kind of made him into his own little guy. But here we go. I'm going to transform G1 Prime up on camera just because I do think the transformation of G1 Prime, I think it's basically what any other Uniclasserations Prime has evolved from this transformation. And all these years later, people still love Optimus Prime. What a legendary character. What a legendary animated series. I will post my review of G1. I watched all the seasons. I watched season 1 and 2 times, actually. So that's why it took a while to get that. But you're actually, a lot of people just pop that part out. You're supposed to push that part back and then flip that out so you don't wear it down as fast. But it's already kind of loose on this reissue. Yeah, I'll tighten that up somehow. But right here we have Optimus without his hands because he is a parts former. I know a lot of people whine about parts forming, which I'm not a fan of it either. I definitely prefer when they don't have it, but all the way back in the day, G1 Prime had parts forming. And on this KO G1 Optimus Prime right here, the hands were really loose, so I put a piece of tape around there to get them to stick in. But tell me if you want to see my review of this. I did do a review of this before I custom painted any of this stuff on there, but it was kind of a disaster. And you know, that's why I didn't upload the review. It was kind of a mess and all over the place. And other people have already done really great G1 Prime reviews. But this is a comparison that a lot of people wanted to see, the Netflix version versus a G1, because they are similarly colored, at least to the naked eye. But in person, the G1 Prime in really good lighting, this looks more like a dark purple than a dark blue, which is interesting. That's not something I would have ever thought from seeing videos and pictures. Maybe it's not 100% accurate on the KO here, but I've heard that people that have gotten the KO that have actually owned the original G1 Prime, which I seen it a lot as a kid without his hands because my friend had it and he was missing the hands on his, so I usually seen him without hands. But yeah, where is his gun? Where did I put that? Oh, here it is. That was what I was looking for. There we go. So all done up. I did pose him differently than I had him before originally. Let's kind of get them all in similar poses. I do have 3D print blades on the side of him as well. I just thought that looked cool and filled up that little hole right there for now, but I don't think it's going to distract too much from the comparison here. And this is also the 3D printed gun I was talking about. So there you go. Now I've done a significant custom paintwork job to Earthrise Prime, and now I'm going to further clarify why I was mad at the Kingdom Optimus. I was so mad that it still retained those problems from Earthrise Prime of these parts being dark gray. That's just a mold color change. That would have been really easy to do. I had to custom paint it there on the... Whoa, 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 whoa! Camera's going out of whack there. Sorry about that. But that part was gray right there, and that part should be red. And that would have just been way better if they had fixed that on the Kingdom. I'm not mad that more people were able to get Optimus Prime, not at all. I was just mad that they didn't make the changes to make it literally so much better. This blue right here is custom painted as well. I think that matches really, really good. I'm glad that I got the paint to match that good on him. But the problem is what I didn't realize when I was mixing the paints that I had grabbed an oil paint and an acrylic. So I had mixed an acrylic and an oil, and you're not supposed to do that. It takes it like an extremely long time to dry, which I painted this like yesterday. Or was it the day before? And it's still not 100% dry, so that's why I'm trying not to touch the sides and the back. And it's not good for long term. So definitely make sure you're using one or the other when you go to do this. But I also dripped in some of the oil paint from a paint Sharpie into the blue mix, because this is kind of a metallic, not metallic, but it's kind of a shiny blue color. So that definitely helped it. Like, that matches really good to the naked eye and on camera. That's basically like a perfect match. It's crazy. But I'm definitely proud of that. And I've already custom painted around the eyes silver even more than I did before. I did the little side parts there. I did the top of the mouth plate and the upper like cap area in silver as well. And I painted the eyes in blue here, the same color as that, because the eyes kind of looked dead before. It's still kind of hard to get the right amount of light in between that area on Earthrise and Kingdom Prime, but I think it's a little bit easier now that I've painted it a lighter blue. Then, let's move that back out of the way. On Kingdom, or not King, I'm getting confused, folks. I'm sorry. I hope you're actually watching this video. If you've made it this far in the video, type G1 Prime in the comments to let me know. That'd be greatly appreciated. So here, right there, all this is painted on, not the stickers from it. This part is painted. The windows, something you could do on your G1 Prime, even if you don't want to custom paint anything. If you have blue painter's tape, you can just tape that on the inside of the clear window. I cut it in the center because there's those, I'll actually just show you what that looks like on the center in here. I just taped the blue tape in there, and it holds in pretty well. I did that to my Siege Ironhide. I did the same thing to that. The tape is still in there, so it holds in well enough to stay on display, and I think that looks better than just hollowly seeing through to the back. And, you know, it makes the windows blue, animation accurate. So definitely a nice, easy customization you could do on your G1 Prime. And then the eyes on the reissue, the yellow wasn't painted that well. I was going to leave it the toy accurate yellow, but since it wasn't painted well, I was like, oh, I'm painting the eyes. I might as well paint them blue to match the animation, which is what I did. So those are the custom paint jobs I gave to them, and the only custom paint work I've done on the Netflix so far is the silver in this area to kind of match how the G1 toy was with that silver there, since this is a more toy accurate colored one, obviously, but still didn't do the red on the up top parts right there. And I wanted to pop the pins out of the Kingdom one that I have, put the blue windows on there. I think that I will like him about as much as I like him if I do that to him, because those green windows I just don't like. I know that this is actually shelf warming at the time of recording this video. It's crazy. I've seen a bunch of these actually hitting Walmart. I thought they were done stocking this thing. Usually stuff is only in stores around me, at least, for like, they stock it like 2 times in the span of like a month, and then it's done, which really sucks. You got to be on your game around here. I've still not found half of Kingdom Wave 2, which sucks. But that's what that's looking like. Even the back of the legs still have the silver on him. They didn't just mold that all in blue. Quick interlude here, because I forgot to do it in that part of the video. Here is the Siege Prime versus the Earthrise Prime. Now, I mean, we could just, I know this is bigger because it's the KO upscale, and you also have die-cast parts here and here, but it's still the same figure, so I thought it was worthy to throw in here as a comparison. But you'll notice that they did do a few more animation accurate things on the Siege, even though it had this arm kibble, it had this back kibble that you can pop off, but it had the blue on the side of the legs, because that panel in the back flips back there. It had the wheels tucked into the leg, so it had that going for it. But I think that up here you have the notch up there, you have the arm kibble. I mean, all that stuff can be popped off, but I do generally think that Earthrise is better, even though it came originally with the silver on the side of the legs. That was such a detractor for me, especially on the shelf. Just looking at it, I was like, oh boy. So that's why I had to paint it. It just kept bothering me so much. And then the red here, that was on the Siege Prime. I don't know why they even thought to change that. Like, why did they do that? Maybe because the sprue down here, this part was molded in gray, and that part was molded in gray. But really, they could have just molded those parts in red too. So I don't know why they did that. That was definitely annoying, but it's fixed now. So there's my comparison of those. Also, the smokestacks, they had the hollow part on the side there. I think that was easier to see than the hollow part on the back. But I still would like to see a KO company upscale this. This is like a leader class, like an actual leader class size, to this size, and also make the color changes to those parts to red and all the leg parts to blue. That would be great to see. But continuing to your regular scheduled program. Now that I've painted this all in blue, I kind of wish they had just molded that all in blue, because that looks good in blue on the back of the legs as well. But you see where I said the paint wasn't 100% dry, I kind of messed it up there a little bit. But I definitely got to let that dry for some weeks, because I made the mistake of mixing that with something you're not supposed to. I also have thought about popping the pin out and putting these actual silver wheels on that. I'm not talking about the pin at the wheel level, I'm talking about the pin that holds this whole piece in, to swap that. Because yeah, I could paint that silver. I already did with a silver paint Sharpie, but for some reason it didn't stand out on that plastic. So kind of strange, but there is all three. You can really see the evolution, not only in the figure itself, but the transformation and everything. They really did take their time. They made a great figure. Just a few color changes would have made this literally perfect how I have it right now. I mean, this cannot get much better. I mean, that's really looking great with those paint changes, which could have been, they wouldn't have had to paint those pieces. They would have just had to mold it in the different color. They could have molded all of this in blue back here. All of that could have been molded in blue. And then these parts could have been molded in red. And the only extra paint they would have had to do to achieve this was basically that. I understand that doing the heart, the silver on the eyes, and these parts is pretty unlikely for them to do, but just those color changes would have vastly improved the Kingdom release, you know, even the Earthrise release. But they re-released the same exact thing. That's why I was so mad in that video. I wasn't mad like, oh, they released it again, people are getting it. No, I just wish they made the changes. That would have made it perfect. But there you go. Which one is your favorite? I know this was a long video. It was kind of all over the place. Oh, wait. I actually have something else to show you. I got to tweak this design. I just found it on Thingiverse. I was like, oh, I'll print this up for G1 Prime. But for some reason, it didn't have the correct things on the back. Even though in the pictures, he showed it actually on the toy. So I don't know how he did that. Maybe there was a variation that didn't have this piece here, which is crazy to think about. But that could be a possibility. And this was a bigger gap than that was supposed to be there. But I'm going to tweak that to actually work on G1 Prime here. But it can still kind of pop on there. And it fills in that back area and gives him the jetpack that he had. Sideswipes jetpack when he flew into space. It's funny how Optimus Prime in the G1 series, he got knocked down from space, fell from space and hit the ground, but he rolls down the side of a mountain and he can barely transform. That was pretty funny. But yeah. I'm going to quit babbling. You know, I mean, you could visually see all the changes from this. But tell me which one is your favorite. My favorite is definitely the custom painted Earthrise Prime. The work I did to that vastly improved that figure. Like, it's just... For the people that made it all the way to the end, I'm going to have some questions here of things that would you like me to do to this figure. So I thought about designing a 3D print piece that could pop on the side here that covers up the wheels and has the smokestack. Why do I keep calling them smokestacks? The gas tanks. So it would have the gas tank part, and it would cover the wheels up, so it would be even more animation accurate. So would you like me to design that? And would you like to see me do the rest of the customizations to this to make it. I would make this the more toy accurate one, and I would make that one even. I mean, there's not much more animation accuracy I could do to that one, but the 3D printed parts that I was talking about. But swapping out the windows for the light blue windows to be on here, I kind of don't want to paint the eyes yellow because that looks really good how it is with those eyes blue. But if you wanted to see it and enough people dropped comments and this video somehow blew up, I would do it to make this very animation accurate. And I would, of course, chrome out the legs and do all of that. So tell me if that's something you're interested in seeing. Have a great one. If you're new, watch the videos, decide if you want to subscribe. Also, I read all the comments, so drop them. Have a good one. Peace. Bye-bye.
The Transformers will return after these messages.
On there pretty well, and I don't think that looks too bad. Inside, this shit sucks.